Hey, what's going on, guys? Lord MC here, back with another video on where I think the market might go next week. Um, but first, let me preface by saying I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. So, having said that, jumping over to the SPY one-day chart here. Um, on Friday, it did close on negative 1.68 for the day, closed at 367.95. It did attempt to touch its June lows here. June lows closing day was at 365.86, and it did fall down to 363.29, but ultimately never touched the actual June lows at 362.17. So what do I see happening, at least opening day on Monday? I'm looking at here at the RSI. It's a little bit oversold. HSI for this is telling us that there's still some downside. AMP RSI is down there as well. So I did mention on Thursday that if it did lose 370, 371, that we continue possibly testing to 360, 361, 360. And Friday was very profitable. Getting those buy puts at 373 on Thursday. Holding runners on Friday. That was about a 300% move for me. So Friday played out nicely for me among AMD also, which was another 350% gainer, and Affirm with another 300%. So it was a good day overall. Obviously, we don't like to play against the trend, because if we play against the trend, we might be crushed. Volume did start to pick up here, so opening Monday should be interesting. So what do I see for SPY, at least in the next couple of days? I do think we may see some further downside, but we might get a little bit of relief because of how oversold it is. So we may have something like maybe come back and test the gap fill at 373 before more continuation, or at the very least touch target 2 and then come back down. Right. I do believe that I think we just maybe test the bottom here, the trend line of this, the bottom of this gap fill at 370 before continuing more to the downside. If we go to the 2-day of this bearish shark pattern, we have hop here at 357, which would be a key critical level here if SPY loses this, because we can continue to see more downside, right? HSI is not oversold yet. RSI isn't oversold. HSI still has some room, as well as AMP RSI. But jumping over to the weekly, just I think something that you guys should look at here. SPY on the weekly fell below the 200 EMA. Luckily, it closed just above it. So that's very concerning here, that if it loses that, we could probably start getting, maybe some capitulation, like we did back in June, right? This was, I would think, some type of capitulation where if we get some type of few more days here, maybe form another double bottom here before a reversal to the upside. So that would be interesting to see. So something that I would be looking at for levels of support and resistance here at 373, and also resistance at 381 if it tries to go up there. One thing to note is that there's a lot of things going on this week, with a lot of the Fed talks, and a big one being September 30th, which is PCE. So if PCE comes a little bullishness, maybe we can bounce off that double bottom wherever it starts to bottom here in the second bottom here, and then continue pushing to the upside if PCE data is bullish, right? Otherwise, I do think we can continue going further down, maybe have some type of event like we did over here, but who knows. Level of support would be at 361 and then 357. Jumping over to the triple Qs here, on the day it did close on Friday, it went as low as negative 1.63 at closing at 275.51. I did mention on Thursday's video that if it lost 275, it would probably continue down to like 270 and possibly testing its June lows. It did go as far as 272 and close just above this line that I had here. RSI here, the triple Qs, is just barely touching 30, so it could still see some downside, right? HSI still has some room to go. So its June lows was at 271.39. It's really close to it, so looking at over at the weekly, it did close below its 200 EMA, which is a little bit concerning, right? It literally closed also where this horizontal line at 275.40, where I have it, right? The next level would be its June lows, where if we continue going and losing this, yeah, we're approaching almost like COVID levels, right? COVID levels here would be at 237. So losing this right here, very important to see what the Nasdaq is gonna do. So have that on your watch list and make sure it's the next level of support is at 275. If it decides to have a little short relief here, we would probably fill this gap at 278, and then possibly maybe let's check at, yeah, there's 278 would be the next, 278 at this gap fill, and then possibly 286 at the 90 EMA for levels of resistance. But below that, the support is at 275 and then 268, 278, 270. Call it 270, losing 270, then 268. So keep that on your watch list. Jumping over to the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones did fall below its June lows. On Friday, it had a closing day 295.86, where it lost negative 1.55% for the day. It did test this ABCD pattern top at 293.52, where it closed just above it. So the Dow Jones, it already made its move to close below its June lows. So the Nasdaq, the triple Qs, and SPY have yet to do that. So we may see continuation to the downside short term on those before we get a relief or a short term bounce. As you can tell, the Dow Jones here on the 1 day, the RSI is oversold. HSI still has a little bit of more room to go. But jumping over to the weekly we clearly closed below 200 EMA, and as you can tell here, it's already at its the all-time highs here back in February 10th, where the high was 295.87 right before we got news that we were going to get lockdowns, right, when Congress sold. So it literally is at that level here. Losing this, we could probably see continuation. So that's something to watch out for. We take here the COVID lows here with the fib retracement tool to its all-time high, 275. See if it loses 297, next target would be 275, possibly a 618 at 253, right? But we'll see if it wants to get there. There is let's see, the 1 month, it's also testing the 50 EMA here as well. So I do think we do get a short-term bounce in the market here with how oversold it is, but if capitulation happens, we can find that double bottom and finally start reversing. So jumping over to the VIX, the VIX did test this bearish bat pattern at hop at 31.79. It fell and closed just under $30, closed at 29.91. One thing that is very concerning, I do believe we'll get some type of volatility, is if the VIX goes above 30, it could potentially go and spike up to like 35, and that would cause that major sell-off in the market. But we will see what the market is going to do at open. If we go look at futures right now, it's down negative 0.24%. So it's still early to tell, but it's going to be interesting to see where futures is going to open up at. So jumping over to Apple, I did mention that if it lost 148 here, we could potentially see further downside. Probably test this 134.41. It's been holding strong compared to Microsoft, which has already, done its June lows. So this is very important level here on Apple. One thing that I wanted to share real quick that is very interesting is the SMAs, the golden cross, right? The 50 SMA is this yellow line here, and then the red line is the 200 SMA. And a crossover to the upside here, we would obviously first need candles to be above both of these. We're still far off, but usually you get a golden cross. But what's interesting, if we switch over to the 2-day chart, it's approaching a death cross, so it's opposite, right? So which one are we gonna get? We don't know yet, right? We have to see what the market is gonna do, and since Apple is 7% of the S&P and the Nasdaq, this is a very important ticker to watch, right? So Apple is holding quite strong here, but it's nowhere close to its June lows at 129, 130, right? So this still has room to grow. Room to go down to the downside if it loses 148, right? I'd be concerned more to look at target 2 of this bearish shark pattern. So keep this on your watch list for this week. One thing that's interesting over on the opposite side, the EMAs, right? The EMAs is on the golden cross. A death cross here would be the 50 EMAs is blue, and the green would be the 200 EMA. So on the 1 day, it's telling us that we're possibly getting that death cross, right? So who knows what that's going to play out. I do think, as you could tell here, HSI, at least for this bearish shark pattern, just crossed over the midline. Let me just share that real quick. Usually when you cross over the midline, you start coming back down to test oversold areas. As you could tell here, we came down the midline here. We created this double bottom where we bounced up, right? So now we're going to double top here, probably come back down. That's what I'm assuming. Doesn't have to happen. The market doesn't care what I think might happen. But for the most part, losing the midline, you test back down here. Doesn't have to, right? You can reverse, go like this, but it would be interesting to see what that does. So jumping over to AMC, or sorry, let me go to Microsoft real quick to show you here where it did close just below its June lows. Microsoft is oversold. It did come back up, but then it came back down below the RSI of 30. So looking over on the weekly, one key level I have here is 230, where if it loses 230, we might be able to test the 200 EMA at 222 for Microsoft. It is oversold on the 1 day, but as you can tell here on this ABCD pattern, hop is at 232. Like I mentioned, this is where I have this area here as support. So its COVID lows is still far ahead at 190, but it'll be interesting with Microsoft if we do get a short-term bounce, because it is oversold. It would have to be within the next 2 days, maybe. I do believe in the market. I think we do have a little bit of more downside, 1 or 2 more days, and then possibly a bounce. Jumping over to Tesla real quick. Tesla did, I think, invalidate this inverse head and shoulders. So it did lose the 200 EMA. And as you can tell, the RSI still has more downside, as well as the HSI and AMP RSI. So I do believe we may have, again, a short-term sell-off and then a continuation to the upside if we want to get that market bounce or that market relief. Jumping over the weekly here, it's currently just below the 50 EMA. On the weekly has a bullish bat pattern where it's doing, I guess, this type 2 reaction now after doing tested target 1 and type 1 reaction, and then it's now going to probably start testing levels here, possibly maybe going back to XA at 208.79. That's a far move, but we'll see what that does. Jumping over to AMC here, it did close pretty strong at the end of the day, up almost 2% when the market was low. One key level that I'm glad it kind of closed above was this level here at 792, where if we go back, it's the area here back in May, where it did break out finally, right here, right? Broke out, came back down, got rejected here, got rejected the second time, and then we broke out, and that's when we got all-time highs. So that trend line here is a very key important, in my opinion, 792, and we were able to close above it. So what's interesting here on the 1 hour, there is a Gartley pattern here where it's already way below its top level, right? Where we start testing here, possibly the 50 EMA at 822, and bullish case scenario test 876, and then target 1 at 943. So that's would be something that I would be looking at. I do want to get above that level here on the 3-day chart at 919. This is my key level that I have, that I've been wanting AMC to be above for me to even consider any positions, taking my calls long side. But we're a little bit far away from there, so it's going to be interesting to see what that does this opening Monday. I do think that if the SPY or the market in general has a little bit more downside in the next 1 to 2 days, then I do think AMC comes down a little bit. There is some strong support around the 750 range, where if it loses that, it would be very concerning to lose that, because I do think we'll go back to test $6.13 of this XA pattern off this bullish bat pattern here. So it is holding quite strong at 750. So we'll see what that does. Hopefully we get something, some type of volume on Monday to the upside, maybe at least test close to $9, which would be very bullish in my opinion. But having said that, jumping over to GameStop here. GameStop looks like it has it formed like it finished the double bottom here, when we have maybe some type of bounce here. Judging over from the weekly, we have nothing there, but I'm still following this 3-day crap pattern here, where we're still below 27.57. Would like GameStop to come up 27.57 for any consideration of taking any positions here. Hopefully it is a little bit on the 1 day, trying to have crossing the midline here, crossing over bouncing off of this RSI here at 32, maybe continue pushing up to the upside here, but we will have to see what that does. We have a couple of earnings this week that will affect the meme stocks here. I believe the earnings here for those is the BlackBerry has earnings on Tuesday after close, Bed Bath & Beyond as well. So if Bed Bath & Beyond has bad earnings, I do think memes will come down with it. So that's something that it should also be looked at. But overall, I think we do get in the market, going back to SPY here, we do get some type of short-term relief bounce, at least short-term, if they don't want, more downside in the market. So it'll be interesting to see what we open up on Monday. But back again, SPY losing 361. We'll probably go back to 357 before a short-term bounce. So having said that, everybody, good luck. See you tomorrow. And if you like any of this content, please consider giving me a like and subscribing to the channel. See you guys tomorrow.